Ladies, gentlemen, and exiles of all ages, tomorrow marks the beginning of the early access for Path of Exile 2, and with it a ton of people are going to be jumping into this game for the first time. For some people, the campaign and the initial journey are a really important part of what you actually want to play the game for, but for others it's all about just getting to the endgame itself. So today we're going to go over a bit of a leveling guide, trying to provide helpful information to make your leveling journey easier regardless of how you want to take it, but also faster if that's something you're interested in too. I have now played the game pre-release in 3 different events 3 separate times, one of those all the way up to level 25 as well, so I've got some actual experience under my belt here before release. Starting off, the very simple path and thing to do for leveling is to follow the campaign quests. Killing enemies does give you experience as well, but quests give far more relative to the time spent doing it, and campaign quests give the most. Obviously, your initial instinct is to follow the campaign regardless, but the general point of this here is to say don't get bogged down killing enemies. If you see rare enemies, proper elites, they are absolutely worth your time if you are strong enough to kill them, but aside from that, for pure efficiency you want to avoid killing large piles of random enemies unless they are either part of your campaign objective itself or directly blocking your path to access the objective. That said, once you finish the campaign for the first time, at least for the sake of early access, you will have to complete the first 3 acts of the campaign once more on cruel difficulty in order to reach the proper level to actually start engaging with endgame content properly, which is expected to be around level 65. So you do the campaign again on enhanced difficulty, and then you should be ready for the endgame. Past that, my first tip, and probably the most helpful one that you'll hear for this too, is use your map. Get used to your map and take advantage of the fact that it exists. When you open your map, it shows you the general layout of the areas around you, including ones that you have not unlocked yet, and has a ton of other helpful information too. The 2 most relevant bits are directional assistance, by which I mean generally speaking, if a zone on your map is to the southeast of the zone that you are in, the entrance to it is likely located near the bottom right of your actual physical area that you're standing within as well, so it can help you navigate to the zones that you actually need to be in order to continue the story itself. The other big thing that this helps with too is that the map will show you a general idea of the bosses that will show up in each zone too. This is important to let you know how much of the relevant sort of exploration that you've done, but far more importantly than this, in Path of Exile 2, most if not all bosses in the world will give you some sort of permanent bonus when you kill them the first time. A lot of them will give things like some passive skill points, others will have more specific upgrades like permanent resistances in some cases. As a result, long term you will want to have killed all of these bosses at least once, and if you want to make the journey smoother and more comfortable, this is an easy way to boost yourself up in some pretty small ways incrementally along the way too. Of course, past that, if you want to just sort of enjoy the experience of the game as well, my personal favorite part of it, especially in the early game, is by far the boss fights. They feel unique from each other even at lower levels, they have learnable telegraphs and mechanics, and it just feels good to actively dodge their larger attacks and satisfying to defeat them and feel like you're outplaying an enemy within an ARPG rather than just purely stat checking it like a lot of other ARPGs will get you to do. So regardless of the actual power gain, I still recommend doing all of the bosses that you see on your map, or at least trying each one once, as it's simply fun. It's one of the most fun parts of the game that currently exists as far as I'm concerned. Outside of that, you will visit the first hub town quite early in Act 1, and it will remain your hub for the rest of that act, going through some minor changes to the staff that live there, but you want to use the NPCs in this village to your advantage. You can buy things from them that could be upgrades to your equipment, you can sell things to them, or more often you would dismantle items that you have but don't want into crafting materials, because crafting is actually extremely useful. And of course, any game with a crafting system will have it matter at some point, but at least in the most recent version of this game that I played as well, the crafting orbs were dropping reasonably frequently, to the point that it felt like you would be wasting them if you didn't actively use them while you were leveling. Point here being that you will get these things for crafting, and while your first initial instinct might be to like hoard them into a massive pile and save them for later, you should not do that. You will get more of them later, and you will get them easier than you do early too. Use the crafting orbs that you get early to craft good items early too, and it will make your leveling just way more comfortable, with the most important slot to consider, especially early, being your weapon, of course, as this is where the majority of your actual damage will scale off of to begin with. We'll have a lot of a deeper dive guide to items and crafting in their own videos over the next couple of days as well if you want more information on those, but this is just to say that they exist and they can only make your journey better really if you actually pay proper attention to them. Outside of that, the last thing that I really want to talk about here are how you make your skill choices. In the super early game, you will mostly just get uncut skill gems from actual quest rewards, then you'll start to get them as RNG drops from enemies a bit further in too, especially the rare and above enemies. There are 2 ways to play around these in general, as they are a somewhat limited resource in that you simply won't be able to unlock every skill, at least not the moment that you reach the level requirement. Long term, term, you can. You may be able to get them later on, but you usually have to prioritize 1 or 2 skills on each row to begin with. With this, I recommend really trying to sort of think about how you want to play the game. Look at the skills that are available to you, look at the ones that are available in the future even, and keep an eye out for potential combos. A lot of the skills in this game are built to combo between each other and with each other for massive damage or incredibly potent effects when triggered properly. For example, the mercenary gets a rapid fire skill early on that shreds armor off of enemies with every hit, and it also gets a high-powered sniper shot that does a ton of bonus damage to enemies that have full armor break. This creates its own 2-ability gameplay loop that accomplishes a lot more than just using 2 other abilities that are unrelated to each other, and it gives you a lot of freedom to get sort of funky with the rest of your slots too. It's important to find the combos that work or specific skills that you think can sort of carry your damage in general a little bit, but you will have skill gems outside of that too, and so once you've got your base layer of functional powerful abilities, it is absolutely worth exploring into the other skills that interest you as well. You may find something is surprisingly better than it may seem on the surface once you actually get the right support gems inside of it as well. Essentially, the advice as a whole that I have here is to stick to the campaign quests as your main objective for getting experience. Don't necessarily run past every enemy that you see, but don't feel like you have to kill everything that you pass either, as they just don't give that much experience in comparison to quests. Look for the bosses within each map tile, you'll know that you're there. If you look at your map, it'll tell you what's around, and usually the visual of a tile on your map in relation to the tile beside it will also accurately show the position of the entrance within that zone too. This makes it easier to avoid getting lost and could actually save you quite a lot of time that you would otherwise be spending just searching through every bit of space on every map to find the next zone. The ascendancy trials will open up in the later acts of the currently 3-act campaign, allowing you to choose your ascendancy and start gathering your points for that too. And then when you eventually finish the campaign itself, your next goal is to simply, honestly, do it all over again on cruel difficulty, the enhanced campaign difficulty. The goal from the developers with this is for your second campaign run through to end you up around level 65, which should be just about right for the endgame itself to properly begin around you, which opens up the, honestly, majority of the mechanics in the game. They took a very specific choice here near the end of development for early access to stop working more on the campaign and instead develop a lot more endgame. So right now, while you do have to do the currently only 3 acts of the campaign twice to reach the endgame itself is actually looking extremely expansive for an early access release. That just about does it then, everyone. A guide on essentially the basics of leveling for Path of Exile 2, how to do it, both how to make your journey more comfortable and enjoyable, but also to try and make it a little bit quicker and more efficient too for the people who are looking for speed above all else. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.